Hey everybody. There's a giant misconception in our society today, which is still very, very widespread, and that has to do with aliens. Aliens don't exist as society on the whole might still perhaps perceive them. Now, there's an incredibly active UFO community nowadays since the 60s, really. There has been before that, as far as I understand. But as with any other area of knowledge, this community has separated off of other areas of knowledge, as has been the case for hundreds of years, really, with all sciences, with the health sciences, natural sciences, social sciences, and arts and religion. All of these areas have separated more and more from one another, and perhaps there has been an accumulation of more and more in-depth, detailed knowledge within, or specific logical information within each of these areas. But in fact, there is less and less holistic knowledge with regard to any of these areas because they are detached from all the other areas and therefore lacking the the necessary context. So the same applies to the area of aliens and ufology. It is essentially impossible to attain to some degree of truth in this area, viewing it as a separate thing from psychology, spirituality, and geopolitics, which perhaps makes the most sense for most people anyway. So, there are three major types of UFO and alien phenomena that I would categorize such phenomena in. The first is man-made reproduction vehicles and genetically modified cloned beings. Simply put, man-made objects from black projects, top secret military projects, which are 50 or even more years beyond our current state of technology. And beings which are seemingly alive and born as any other being on Earth would be, but are in fact a result of genetic engineering, cloning, and are a very temporary and almost ephemeral sort of life form. Definitely not self-conscious to the degree that it can attain to some sort of spiritual insight or real self-recognition or real independent choice. The second form of, or phase, form of UFO and alien phenomena, I would call those which are artificially induced by either climatic conditions, earth chakras, earth ley lines, energy vortices, advanced electromagnetic weaponry by the militaries of the world today, or substances such as LSD, ayahuasca, or very much more refined substances which are not known to the general public, very subtle substances, as well as psychological techniques of suggestion, inducing certain emotional states on, for example, workers of underground military facilities or other government employees, which altogether, be it climatic conditions, energy vortices, weaponry, advanced electromagnetic weaponry, or any sort of substances or psychological techniques, which altogether induce in a person a state of being which allows that person to temporarily access or perceive astral dimension very, very close to our physical dimension, very, very close to it, in which UFOs and aliens may be active, may act, may be perceived. And this is UFOs in the sky or alien abductions. Now, this may include dream states, and this may include almost religious, spiritual states of trance or hypnosis. In any way, it's temporarily accessing astral layers, astral dimensions, very, very close to our physical one, and temporarily bringing that dimension into perception in the physical. Now, in the case of, for example, electromagnetic weaponry or climatic conditions such as storms or hurricanes or energy vortices, this may actually bring a craft from the astral into the physical for enough time that it can be disabled in the physical and can actually remain there, or at least its semblance, its mirror image in the physical can actually remain there, as has apparently been the case in the infamous Roswell crash, or many, many other UFO crashes which have been induced by the military, by electromagnetic weaponry. The third mode of UFO or alien perception or encounter, I would call those which are willful and natural from the other side. They are interactions between beings on the astral plane and this physical earth plane for the purpose of helping humanity and of preventing damage to this earth and to humanity. And the reason why such types of perceptions and encounters have become very widespread since the 60s or the 50s is not necessarily only because of the development of mass media and information society, but because of the invention and the proliferation of atomic weaponry and the real danger for the stability of this earth, of this place in the universe. Beings which have passed our human state of being have since that time started to interact with the physical dimension to prevent greater harm and to support the further natural course of evolution of humanity on this earth. Essentially, aliens, as we imagine them, as physical beings, oval-headed, oval-eyed, gray, whatever, pink, whatever color, there are many descriptions, don't exist in the physical. Essentially, this place, Earth, and this experience, the human experience, is unique in the universe. It's a unique chain in the infinite chain of spiritual evolution, a unique link in the chain of spiritual evolution in this universe. And the whole universe as we perceive it with all its stars and the sun and the moon it's just an artifact of those modes of perception, those senses, which belong to this state of being, to this layer of consciousness, to this link in the chain of spiritual evolution, of universal spiritual evolution. The mode we perceive the universe here is just an artifact of this state of being. At the same time, it would be a waste for the universe to use this state of being for any other part in the link in the chain of spiritual evolution. Each little link has its own state of being, its own way of perceiving the universe. There's an infinite number of life forms out there, but none of them have anything to do with this human life form, with this human state of perception. This is uniquely human. This is unique in the universe. The way the universe is perceived through the eyes, ears, nose, skin is unique to the human experience. And therefore, aliens, such as imagined in pop culture, are nothing more than a projection, whether this be gray, avian, reptilian, or any of them, nothing more than a projection of the human state of affairs, the human state of consciousness, which is a unique and beautiful state of evolution and of spiritual evolution in the universe. A projection of that onto some rudimentary or arbitrary, rather, image of some sort of other body, but essentially in this three-dimensional mode of perception, human mode of perception. Now, an infinite number of beings do exist in the universe, and naturally there's a fluid interaction between other states of being and this human state of being, and the lines of borders are fluid, and really it is hard to separate them. But aliens, true aliens, are other degrees, other modes of being, other levels of being. And if any of these beings from those other levels of being, other levels of perception, of consciousness, does for any sort of reason choose to very directly interact with this our mode of being, then there may be a possibility of some degree of materialization, almost exclusively in astral planes close to the physical. But in some very, very, very exceedingly rare circumstances, perhaps also in the real three-dimensionally physical. in one of the three ways I mentioned before. But mostly it would be in the astral, and then and only then there could be some sort of perception, but the perceiver's mind, the filters of the perceiver's mind are required for this. There could be a perception of some sort of body, be it gray, alien, blue avian, reptilian, reptoid, whatever. This perception of this body is absolutely unnecessary because all these beings are far beyond anything three-dimensional, and in fact the perception of them by us is absolutely possible without any sort of projection onto any sort of bodies. They are states of being, and we are essentially free to access these states of being. Or at least we are working towards those states of being, those higher, more elevated states of being. So therefore, aliens, as popularly imagined in some sort of physical bodies, don't exist. There are occurrences in our physical experience, no doubt, in which people perceive UFOs and aliens. And these may be induced in one of the three ways I went over, either through naturally occurring states of being, such as religious perception, trance, hypnosis, drug-induced, hypnosis-induced, induced by advanced electromagnetic weaponry, energy vortices, climatic conditions, or by a willful interaction between those layers or dimensions and this three-dimensional physical layer or dimension, or simply a perception of a man-made advanced physical craft or genetically engineered being. True alien life, however, has nothing to do with any of that. True alien life, of which there is an infinite amount, is a question of a level of consciousness, a mode of being, a state of consciousness, which is beyond that of the human state of consciousness.